Hello everybody, Josh12 back here again with another video, and I'm here with another DC video. But before I get into my scheduled programming for this video, I wanted to quickly do a tribute or in memory of a specific actress who passed over this previous weekend, which of course is Noel Neill. It's sad I wasn't capable to do a tribute solo video like I did with the previous actors who died. I wanted to do one for Neo as well. Unfortunately, because of 4th of July weekend, I was incapable of doing so, so I decided, seeing as I'm doing a DC video for this week, might as well just add it along towards this. So this video will be in the memory of Noel Neill, who of course was the first ever Lois Lane. Yes, Lois Lane was brought to life in live action and on film because of Noel Neill. She is the first worldwide known Lois Lane, and Lois Lane is a very important character to the mythology of Superman. So is Neill. Noel Neill was a big part of that, and of course she was a part of that generation of superhero films and projects and TV shows that were taken unseriously, and of course careers were destroyed, including hers, because of people's incapabilities to take superhero and comic books seriously the way they are taken today. And it's just really sad to see that. However, it's really great to know that she was unaffected by it and continued to live her life outside of film, but added along her presence within the Superman mythology and with TV shows and movies and the Superman franchise, and continued to be a staple within the Superman mythos. So, with that being said and done, this video will be in memory of her life, and of course this will be a tribute to her. She will always be known as the first Lois Lane, and she'll always be great for that. Well everybody, I'm back talking about Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice again. Yes, I previously did a review for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the theatrical version, which of course, if you haven't done so already, please go check it out. My personal thoughts on that film will be either in this video, a link, or of course just go to my channel, you'll find it quite easily. But with that being said and done, the Ultimate Edition has come out, of course, with the digital version. I'm pretty sure the Blu-ray's coming out pretty soon, and I got a chance to check it out. Now, of course, I did state I would inevitably review this version, but my first intentions was to review the Blu-ray and the film itself, but seeing as how I just do not want to come to terms with buying the Blu-ray of Batman v Superman the Ultimate Edition. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I've already wasted so much money on Batman v Superman merchandise. I feel ashamed in owning majority of it, with the exception of the pop vinyls. I mean, I'm just saying, they're just so damn adorable. It just, even something as terrible as Punisher Batman, it's still fucking adorable. So, I mean, look, he has a batarang ready to kill people. It's fucking adorable. Well, with that being thrown aside to the corner, let's get into Zack Snyder's 2016 DC film that's based on Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, and every other great DC storyline that's stuffed in this film. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. Now, of course, I hope you guys checked it out already, because this review will contain spoilers. But that being said, before we get into the Ultimate Edition, let me touch upon my final verdict for the theatrical version. Now, when I did my original review for this film, I gave the theatrical cut a 6 out of 10. Now, to be perfectly honest, within this review, I was being overly generous and positive over the situation, because if you go back and remember, BVS was getting pummeled by critics and fans alike. So I was trying to be like a little positive over the situation. However, if I was being realistic with you viewers and myself, that movie more or less deserved a 5 out of 10 from me when it came to that version of the film. However, with that being said, I have seen the movie multiple times since then to deconstruct it and truly find out, what is this movie? What is it all about? What does it really mean to me as a movie fan and as a DC fan? And I can honestly find out and come to grips that I honestly don't like this movie. BVS Dawn of Justice is a huge disappointment and adds nothing to a DC cinematic universe, and pretty much just butchers its characters and universe alike. So my final verdict for the Dawn of Justice theatrical cut is a solid 4 out of 10. I don't like it, I don't ever want to see it again, and I don't ever want to talk about it again. But with that being said, does the Ultimate Edition change that opinion? Does it change my personal thoughts on the film, Zack Snyder's vision for the DCU? Well, let's find out by the end of this review. Now, of course, when it comes to the Ultimate Edition versus the theatrical cut, when you watch the theatrical cut, it feels more or less a Batman movie featuring Superman with a small cameo by Wonder Woman. I think if we start off with the positives first, the great thing about the movie is that, at least with the Ultimate Edition, it adds Superman sequences back into the movie. And it gives a 50-50 balance of Superman story with Batman story, which I think is great. Wonder Woman's story is pretty much still intact, very much paint by numbers the same way it was in the theatrical cut, but the Ultimate Edition gives a lot more Clark, a lot more Lois and Clark, a lot more Clark doing Daily Planet reporting things, and of course a lot more Superman saving people, which is a good plus. Now, with that being said, let's get into the Superman stuff. Now, the Clark stuff is very interesting. Clark is pretty much, going back and forth from Metropolis to Gotham City to try and investigate and understand the Batman. He's trying to report on that. He wants to write a paper on it, and he's battling within his inner demons with how this character does his things, how I should do these things as Superman, and all these other crazy things, which I think is a huge plus, because when you watch the movie, Clark Kent is very non-existent. He tries to report on the Batman, but overall it's pretty much all for naught, and it doesn't really make that much sense. In this edition, it makes a lot of sense because you understand what's really going on because the movie gives you context, which I think is the biggest plus, because the version that we saw in theaters has no context. It's just scene to scene to scene, cut to black, cut to black, cut to black. Room is given to breathe so we can understand the scenes, unlike the theatrical cut, and a lot of that has to do with Clark finding out who is Batman, what does he stand for, how do we stop what he's doing, and is he really the cause of so much death that's going on, and all this kind of crazy stuff. We also got some Superman stuff, which is nice. Still, granted, Superman within the movie is still, I like to call him like emo super Jesus, because that's what he is. I mean, yes, we get to see like time in the movie where you get to the wheelchair bombing at the Capitol. We see him actually saving people. He's actually trying to get people to the hospital. He's trying to help them who were attached to this bombing and this explosion that happened within that building. He's trying to help them, which is a great plus. However, he still feels very much like he is at fault. He is the reason for such great nonsense that's happened, so he's very sad. Majority of the movie, he's pretty much sad. Even as Clark Kent, when he's reporting, investigating stuff on the Batman, he still feels very sad. So Henry Cavill's performance as Superman in the movie is still very much emo super Jesus, but at least he gets stuff to do, which I think is the big plus within the pile that is this movie. Now, moving off of Superman, let's get into Lois Lane. Now, when you watch the theatrical version of the film, Lois Lane has a lot to do, but it's very much irrelevant because you don't really understand what she's really doing, nor does it have anything to do with anything. However, with the Ultimate Edition, we get a lot more scenes of her actually figuring out what's really going on. Lex Luthor is pretty much obviously the main villain of the film. However, when you watch the movie, he's everything he does is behind the scenes. However, all the behind the scenes stuff are in the Ultimate Edition, which has a lot to do with Lois Lane and KGB's character that's played by Kylan Mouvier. And a lot of that has to do with Africa. A lot of it has to do with the wheelchair bombing. The Africa scene is pretty much more fleshed out with the Ultimate Edition. We get to see a lot of stuff with that. Lois Lane has a lot more to do with Jimmy Olsen before he inevitably, sadly dies. And of course, it has a lot to do with the bullets that were found. How does that factor into that, massacre in Africa? Then there's the wheelchair bombing. Why wasn't Superman capable of finding out who that is? Well, there was lead in the wheelchair, which caused Superman not to see it. And a lot of that has to do with Lois Lane figuring out these things to bring back life into Superman. And a lot of that also has to do with Jenna Malone's character. You find out that Jenna Malone is sadly not Barbara Gordon in this universe, but she's a forensic scientist who works for Star Labs, who helps out with Lois Lane in her investigation to find out what's really going on in this movie. The wheelchair bombing, the bullet, all of that has to do with Jenna Malone's character and how she factors into the film. And also through the process with Jenna Malone and Lois Lane investigating all of this wheelchair stuff, the bombing with Scoot McNairy's character, the Africa stuff, you find out that actually Scoot McNairy's character may not actually wanted to commit suicide at that bombing. Maybe he really wanted to just talk to Superman and get his personal vendetta against him out there. However, it's find out through the investigating reporting of Lois Lane that maybe he really didn't want to commit suicide, and it was more or less Lex Luthor's plan. Lex Luthor is very much a behind-the-scenes puppet master within the film. The Ultimate Edition kind of helps his plan overall he still comes off as a wackadoo that makes no sense. He's very much just Jim Carrey Lex Luthor. However, I think the great thing about the Ultimate Edition is that it gives more depth into what he's really doing and how he's affecting all these characters that happened with Africa, that happened with the bombing with the wheelchair, the African characters, the characters that happened with Batman, with the branding of that, you know, criminal, and how that factors into this whole Superman hating Batman or investigating Batman, wanting to fight each other. A lot of the Ultimate Edition gives us is the planning that Lex Luthor's, you know, planting all throughout the film that has to deal with everything that's going on, which is a huge plus. It still doesn't really make sense because it leads into the third act, which of course is the major problem with the film, which is everything else is kind of invalid by the time Doomsday shows up. But most part, it's good because you get to understand the context of what's really going on from scene to scene to scene in the first two acts of the film. However, with all that being said and done, that's pretty much the overall positives I can say about the film. Yes, it's good that they got more Superman Clark Kent stuff. Yes, it's good to see Lois Lane do some more relevant things. Yes, it's cool to see Jenna Malone do some stuff and find out that Scoot McNairy's character may have not been suicidal at the time. And yes, it's kind of good to get a little bit more context as to what Lex Luthor was doing and planning throughout the film. However, the movie still fails. I feel like majority of people who have been overly positive about this new edition are kind of overselling it because, yes, those new additions to the film, those 30 minutes or so that are added, yes, help and enhance the movie. However, for me personally as a viewer and as a fan of the DC Universe, it still really doesn't change my opinion on the movie. At least maybe not completely. Slightly changes here and there my personal feelings, but overall those are the only good positives. Everything else is kind of useless. There's this weird like football game kind of scenario side story with Perry White and Clark Kent, and it's just very over-exaggerated and stupid. Like, wow, Metropolis football players are better than Gotham City's football players. That's the true story in here, folks. That doesn't really make much sense. We get some extra stuff with Ben Affleck, which is kind of cool, but kind of adds to him being just a giant douchebag who loves killing people. And then there's the R-rated stuff. Now, the R-rated stuff has a lot to do with Batman, and it just continues to make me more aggravated because all it does is add to the fact that Batman is more of a killer. When I heard people's opinions on, oh, the Ultimate Edition gives you a reason as to why, you know, Bruce Wayne and Batman are a killer, no, it really doesn't. All it does is influence and enforce the idea that Batman is a true killer, which I don't like by any means in any stretches. I don't think anybody can really ever change my opinion on Batman being the way he is in this film. No one can really do that. I mean, all this movie does is enforce that idea that Batman's not Batman in this movie, he's the Punisher, and that has a lot to do with the rated R cut of this film. The Ultimate Edition gives us some rated R stuff. We see a lot more craziness that happens with Batman's fights. You can obviously tell that mostly majority, at least like 99% of everyone who gets punched by Batman is pretty much dead because there is large portions of blood splatter and particles flying all over the place when Batman's killing. Like, look, there's two sequences that have a lot of Batman in it. One is the car chase scene, the Batmobile chase scene. I hate that scene. I think it's blasphemous to Batman, so let's not talk about it. However, there's the warehouse scene. Now, when I watched the theatrical version, I didn't have that much of a problem with it. Yes, there's some stuff here and there that I wasn't big on, like Batman stabbing the guy and Batman letting that dude with the bomb kill himself or whatever. Yes, those annoyed me, but for the most part, that warehouse scene was pretty much the best Batman stuff we saw. In the Ultimate Edition, that scene has a little bit more to it. There's a lot more Batman kicking ass, which is cool, but there's a lot more blood. There's a lot more stabbings. I mean, there's a scene literally by the end of that fight in the warehouse where Batman, like, pins that guy against the wall, and it doesn't end there. He walks to him, stares at him up and down, and he stabs him in the guts. And I think he whispers in his ear, "I'm Batman, motherfucker. Now die." He doesn't say that, but in your head, as a fan, you're like, he could have said that and he would have meant it. And that's the sad thing. It's pretty much just Punisher, it's Murder Man. He just kills motherfuckers, and the warehouse scene has become another scene that adds to me not really going on board with this new Batman. So that's pretty much it. That's the Ultimate Edition. Yes, there's some cool stuff in here and there. Yes, the communion scene that we saw online after the movie was released is added in there to influence the idea that, yes, Steppenwolf will be the main villain of Justice League. We get to see that scene. But overall, there's just... there's not really anything there in the Ultimate Edition that makes me want to love this movie more. Yes, it enhances some things here and there, but for the most part, I still don't love this movie. It's still just a big pile to me. I feel like the best way I can put it, if I can be blunt as possible, is that, and honest, is that the theatrical version is a steaming pile. The Ultimate Edition is pretty much just a longer, better looking steaming pile. That's the best thing I can say about it. It's just a large, long, good-looking piece of shit DC film. That's the way I feel about it, and that's just me being completely 100% honest. I don't really care about this movie. The Ultimate Edition, I had high hopes that it would change my opinion, but it really didn't. I mean, it changed my opinion on Superman, or at least Clark Kent, kind of, that he may more or less kind of cared about humanity, but Henry Cavill's performance is still very dull and broody and very much just emo super Jesus. Batman is a super killer. I mean, I'm just saying, they should have casted him as the Punisher in fucking Daredevil Season 2. Like, even at the end of the movie, when Bruce Wayne, Batman, has his final thoughts and opinions on Lex Luthor at the end of the movie, hell, he even references Arkham Asylum, which I will admit is pretty cool, but then there's the whole prison thing. And it's just, like, you can pretty much tell that by the end of this DC universe, Lex Luthor is probably going to get ultra raped by multiple people in Arkham Asylum, because, let's face facts, we already know our personal opinions and personal thoughts when it comes to Zack Snyder, prison, and freaking Batman. We already know that kind of scenario, so I don't really want to go further into detail with that, but overall, all I can really say, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition is not for me. I really wanted to review this when the Blu-ray came out, but I just couldn't find myself to do that. I saw the digital copy thanks to Paul, and, as much as I do think it's a better version versus the theatrical version, but that's not saying a whole lot. The movie's still the same thing. It's not like the Ultimate Edition changes the movie completely. Yes, it gives certain context and new sequences, but it's just an extended version of what we saw. I feel like if you love the movie, you're going to love this version. But if you didn't like the movie, you might change your opinion. It could go either way. But for me, and if you're like me and you just didn't like the theatrical version at all, this Ultimate Edition won't really do anything for you. Because for me personally, it did nothing. Like, I do like it more, but it's still just a movie that I wish was different. I feel like a better move was just to do a live action version to World's Finest. Like, that would have just been better. Or, there's nothing here to change my opinion. I think the Ultimate Edition, if it did anything for me, is just pretty much enforce the idea, which is that nothing Warner Brothers, DC, Zack Snyder, or anybody can really do or say to change my personal opinion on the movie. I don't like it, and it's changed my perspective on DC films, and it's completely made me uninterested in them. That's pretty much my opinion on it. So my final verdict for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, is pretty much just a good 5 out of 10. Maybe a 5.5 on a good day, but for the most part, that's where I stand with the film. I don't ever want to think about it. I don't ever want to talk about it on my channel again. This is the nail in the coffin when it comes to me and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Yes, the Ultimate Edition should be the version that everyone should see from here on out, but that's not saying much, because if you didn't like it in the first place, you're probably still not going to like this new version, because it's still the same movie. Wonder Woman is still, this weird character who's exiled by man, but still finds it necessary to, travel through Metropolis and Gotham to find a stupid picture. Lex Luthor is still this weird wackadoo Jim Carrey, Lex Luthor. Batman is still Murder Man Punisher. Superman is still freaking, emo super Jesus. Lois Lane is still doing a whole bunch of stuff, but doesn't really amount to anything, because, Superman still dies at the end. Doomsday still shows up, which completely, invalidates everything that Lex Luthor, Superman, and Batman do within the entire movie, especially the first and 2 acts, and it's just a movie that really could have been better, had so much potential, but just completely felt flat and was huge disappointment. And if there's anything that this movie illuminates, is that the idea is that Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was created to commit to a person's agenda, which is to make Man of Steel relevant. A lot of people hated Man of Steel. A lot of people were divisive on it, especially because of the destruction, Superman's lack of being Superman, and with the killing. When it came to BVS Dawn of Justice, it was all about making Man of Steel relevant, so we need to do that again, the same here. It's just... I just really hope that Suicide Squad... I just really hope to the Lord above that Wonder Woman, the solo movie, and Suicide Squad really changed my opinions, because at this point in time, I really don't see myself being hyped for any DC films in the upcoming future. But with that being said and done, let me know what you personally thought in the comment section below. Did the Ultimate Edition change your opinion, or are you like me and it completely did nothing for you? For me personally, my final verdict stands. It is a solid 5 out of 10, but that's pretty much just the best way I can go from here. I really don't see myself talking about this movie again on my channel. I will, however, talk about it on Evil Scar 23's channel, because I'm pretty sure by the end of this month or maybe next month, he and I will be doing an audio commentary to BVS Dawn of Justice, more than likely the Ultimate Edition. So if you really like me shitting on this movie, or if you really hate listening to me shit on this movie, then you should pretty much go to Evil Scar 23's channel and wait for that audio commentary to come out. And of course, you know, if you didn't really like this review, or you think I'm a DC hater or a Marvel lover or some kind of form, and you want to dislike this video and write in the comments and, you know, supposedly expose me for, you know, the non-DC fan I am, then you know what you should do? You should go back to my channel and check out my BVS playlist, because it's all about me being super positive about the movie, being overly hyped and overly just gaga over the fact that we're getting a Batman v Superman movie. And you know what? The movie came out and it completely changed my opinion on that. So at the end of the day, that playlist stands way better than the way I can present it here and the way you could perceive it with this review versus everything else I said in the past. So, but with that being said and done, comment below, let me know what you personally think about the film. Will you be picking it up on Blu-ray? Have you picked up the digital copy? Did it change your opinion on the film or make it worse? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But that being said and done, shameless plug time. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And hope you guys enjoyed. And this has been Josh12.